American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Iran says it's reviewing a U.S. proposal to end the war amid optimism in the United States and Pakistan.
We are getting close, a source with mediator Pakistan tells Reuters. This as Iran confirms it's looking at a memorandum of understanding sent by the U.S. aimed at bringing the conflict to a close. The country's Revolutionary Guards also responded, saying if U.S. threats had ended, passage through the Strait of Hormuz would be possible under new conditions. China is putting pressure on the sides to agree a deal. Foreign Minister Wang Yi, meeting his Iranian counterpart, says his country is deeply distressed by the conflict. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy winning the GOP gubernatorial primary in Ohio. Speaking at an election watch party in Columbus, Ramaswamy pledged to return the promise of the American dream to Ohio.
To call myself the Republican nominee for governor in the very state where I was born and raised, that is the American dream that makes American exceptionalism possible. I know that American dream exists because I have lived it in this state.
A conservative columnist says it is clear that so-called progressives are united against America's Christian foundations, and they push faith in government, not God.
Robert Nye is a columnist for the Washington Times. His latest column is entitled, Progressives Do Not Really Believe in Freedom. In it, he makes it clear that the far left pushes faith in government, not God.
The progressives say, well, we don't need any of that religious stuff. We can figure this out on our own, and we can perfect man. We just have to get the right system down. And that always leads to tyranny.
Knight says the Democrat Party has been taken over by a red-green alliance.
The red stands for socialism, communism, what have you. The green stands for militant Islam. And the two have made an uneasy partnership because if you look at what they're supposed to stand for, they're quite at odds, but they're both united against America's Christian foundations. They want to destroy America as we know it and replace it with a collectivist Islamic state. It hasn't worked anywhere. It has caused poverty and chaos and tyranny.
I'm Chad Groening.
An organization wants parents to submit comments to the FCC over LGBT content and children's TV shows.
The request from Concerned Women for America comes after a proceeding the FCC opened in response to concerns that TV ratings are not giving parents sufficient information about content in the programs. Melissa Henson of Concerned Women for America.
We know that a lot of people were caught really off guard last fall when it became sort of this topic of discussion on the internet that there was a considerable amount of LGBTQ messaging showing up in children's programs. But nothing in the current rating system would warn parents that that's there. And so a lot of people were already allowing their children to watch these shows, not realizing the kind of messaging their kids were receiving from these shows that they assumed were okay because they're rated G or Y or Y7.
Pointing to the proceedings from the FCC, Henson said it gives parents an opportunity to express their discontent and dissatisfaction with the system that was really designed by the entertainment industry to protect itself and allow it to continue business as usual without any accountability from parents and no oversight.
No option for parents to weigh in and say, hey, there's something wrong here, or you're misleading us about what's going on. They created really a closed system that's designed to protect their interests over the interests of families. And that's not how it was designed to be. That's not how it was intended to be when Congress authorized the creation of the rating system. And that's not how it should be.
I'm Chris Woodward.
And there's an encouraging update on the job market.
Private employers stepped up hiring last month. Payroll processing company ADP says private sector employment rose by 109,000 in April. Annual pay increased 4.4%. Service providing businesses were adding the most jobs, and hiring was strongest in the West. Ginny Coselda, Fox News.
There's more online at afn.net. And download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Thoughts of the child you were carrying keep pouring over in your mind. A deep, unrelenting sadness overshadows your days, and you wonder if you will ever feel whole again. There is hope and healing from a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline, 866-482-LIFE, and talk with someone who has been where you are. Your call is confidential, and we will help you find healing. 866-482-LIFE.
we inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to The Core here on American Family Radio. Glad to have you with us on this new edition of the program. You can subscribe to the podcast over at afr.net, afr.net, and you can find the podcast as well on all the major podcast platforms, wherever you listen to podcast, and the American Family Radio app is available for you as well. So a lot of different ways to listen to the program, many ways to keep up with American Family Radio and to get the content directly to your device or in your vehicle. We also offer CarPlay and Android Auto integrations. So if you have one of those fancy new screens in your car, with CarPlay, with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you can have the AFR app live there on your dashboard where you can listen to live and past episodes right there in your vehicle. So a lot of different ways to listen to American Family Radio. Let's turn our attention to the scripture, Acts chapter 3, looking at verses 19 and 20. Repent, therefore, and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, so that times of refreshing may come from the presence of the Lord, and that he may send Jesus Christ, who was preached to you before. That's verses 19 and 20 in Acts chapter 3. Well, turning our attention to the news and getting into some of the items that I wanted to cover today. This was a report from last week that I wanted to get on the program, but I just haven't had time thus far. And that is a congressional hearing, and I did mention this in passing, but I didn't play this clip. There was a congressional hearing on the FACE Act and how the Biden Department of Justice weaponized this FACE Act to prosecute and harass pro-lifers. And part of this hearing was each side, if you will, each party and each member gets to invite witnesses to this hearing to testify. Well, one of these witnesses was brought to you by the Democrats, and her name is Dr. Waters. I'll get her full title after this clip. But nonetheless, this witness was interacting with Representative Brandon Gill out of Texas, and they were going back and forth. And of course, the Representative Brandon Gill was trying to get to the point of, what exactly is abortion? And, trying to expose the truth that is the gravity of abortion and the travesty of abortion. So this clip you're going to hear, the female here testifying is Jessica Waters. She's a senior scholar at American University's School of Public Affairs, and she focuses on abortion and abortion law. So she was the Democrats' witness at this hearing, and let's listen to Representative Brandon Gill and Miss Jessica Waters interacting and trying to explain away the gruesomeness of abortion. Let's listen. I don't, obviously, I know practically and politically speaking why the Democrats don't want to answer this, honestly, and these pro-abortion advocates. But But on the other hand, I don't understand it. So I'm back and forth. I'm divided on this because if the Democrats truly believed in their heart of hearts that abortion wasn't murder, that it was just this quote unquote clump of cells, which we know it's not, we know it's human life. But assuming that they're committed to their own deception and their own lies, then logically speaking, you would just say, yeah, I have no reason that I would put any limits on abortion. I mean, why would I, right? Abortion is, quote, healthcare. Abortion is reproductive rights. So the fact that the Democrats and these pro-abortion advocates actually struggle over this question is proof in and of itself that they don't believe their own position. Because if abortion is this no problem and it's not the taking of innocent life, then why even trip over this question? But of course, we all know that's not true. And we all know, even the people talking know in their mind that abortion is the taking of a baby, the taking of the life of a child in the womb. At this juncture in human civilization, for anyone to claim otherwise is just outright disingenuous and outright lying to themselves. No one, and I repeat, no one with a straight-faced and with an honest conscience can state, especially people like adults that have been in science class and biology, know that this is a human life here. And so it's all lies, it's all deception, it's all a word game. But the moral of the story is that people who are in favor of abortion, they don't care about limits. This is why they won't answer the question. They don't care about limits. And the ones who actually are honest are the ones like the former governor out of Virginia, which notoriously stated on camera, on a radio show, by the way, that he thinks abortion should be allowed up until even after birth, and that the parent and the mother and the doctor can have a conversation to decide what to do. This stuff is so wicked. This is so wicked. And it's documented. It's on the record. But here we have it. A pro-abortion Democrat witness in Congress, congressional testimony on the record, admits that she has no limit to abortion. And folks, this is the Democrat Party of 2026. And the people act surprised when there are statements that you can't be a Christian and a Democrat at the same time. You can't be a Christian in good standing with the Lord and vote Democrat. And people are shocked at that. How dare you make such an assertion? How dare you be so judgmental and put such a black and white assessment on it? But then you look at the positions that the Democrats have on the record, and it's like, this is not controversial stuff. These are people who are in favor of baby murder, and we're just simply making an assessment that one can't be in good standing with the Lord and have the Holy Spirit indwelling them, and then at the same time be cheerleading for baby murder. Those two things don't go together under any circumstance. And so this party has become the godless party, and it's a very wicked thing. It's a very wicked thing, and this is why judgment, God brings about judgment on people and nations throughout history, and this is what should humble and strike fear in all of us, even those of us that are born again, because we're presiding and we're sharing a country with people, and a large majority of them that are actually in positions of power and authority, that are they're not just, quote, bad people. These are people that are lobbying and pushing and cheerleading very harmful, evil, and wicked things such as the killing of an innocent child in the womb, and having completely no regard for it, no concern for it, no reservation over it. And that's even to such an extent that they're doing so in live, on the record, sworn testimony before Congress. But this is the Democrat Party of 2026. And the Republicans, I always give this caveat: Republicans are no saints. I've got my problems with the Republican Party. I think they've been weak on some issues, particularly marriage and family, and even in some instances, some of the Republican people running for office or representatives or lawmakers, they've gone soft on the abortion issue in some regards, and so they've got their problems as well. But we're going to have to have people in office that are that have a godly standard of righteousness. And this is why we talk about iVoter Guide, we talk about elections, and talk about getting Christians registered to vote. Because at the end of the day, the main way to fix these problems, which are displaying themselves as political problems, but ultimately they're cultural problems, and then below that, they're spiritual problems. But we're just going to have to continue fighting to elect people that fear the Lord, that fear God for public office, whether we're talking mayor, city council, county commissioner, state positions, state lawmakers, governor, up and down. This is not just a Washington, D.C. problem, but I'm talking state capitals, I'm talking city hall. We have to just, as Christians, continue not only recruiting Christians to run for public office, but also making sure that we're registered to vote and that we're voting for people that share our values, so that we can take over these positions of power and authority that are currently occupied by people promoting very unrighteous, very evil things in our country. That's the ultimate fix here. And it takes civic engagement. We can't be afraid of being civically engaged, of being engaged civically, because this is the blessing and the opportunity that God has given us as Christians, as born-again believers living at this time in this place, is we actually do have the opportunity to choose our leaders. This isn't a monarchy. This isn't a kingdom. This isn't a dictatorship, despite what the left says and the No Kings riots. We live in a representative democracy, a constitutional republic, and you and I get to vote, and we get to choose our leaders. And so this is all on us. And this is where the finger pointing, I started out throwing the Democrats under the bus, but here the finger comes right back at us, choosing our leaders. This is on us. When you look at the number of people who profess Christianity, who profess to be born-again believers, even on the low side of these surveys and these estimates and this research, even on the low side of people who are born-again believers, or at least profess to be Christians, a large majority of them don't even vote. Some of them aren't even registered to vote. And we've had Debbie Wuffnow on. We talk about the numbers, but this is on the citizens of this country. The citizens of America and the voters of this country have, in large part, been sitting on the sidelines, and we've allowed people such as the Democrats that promote these radical abortion positions, we've allowed them to get to positions of power and authority. And so this is a wake-up call to all Christians in the country to be registered to vote and to vote. And if we just increase our turnout and our engagement by 5, 10, 15%, we're talking about changing the entire outcome of elections. We'll be back in a few.
And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth. having determined their appointed times and the boundaries of their habitation. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. The scripture teaches that God has sovereignly determined the boundaries of our habitation and the appointed times in which we would live. That means the fact that you live right now in the United States of America in the 21st century, following the November 2020 elections, it's not a mere coincidence. It is the time and place that God has appointed for you. This isn't a time to shrink back. It's our moment to contend. May the remnant arise to meet our moment. In Jesus' name.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
Satan wants to destroy God's sacred design for marriage and family. How do we defend them in this hostile culture? Activate Summit 2026 is July 16th through the 18th at the Cadence Bank Arena in Tupelo, Mississippi. And the focus this year is on God's plan for marriage and family. Speakers include Bert Harper.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Do y'all see the emphasis God puts on that?
Jeff Shreve.
The devil uses people as his pawns, so to speak.
Jessica Peck.
Stepping into their world, what they like, that's a great way to start.
And more. There's also Activate Kids, a separate track for children ages 6 to 12. And something new this year. Get separate tickets for an exclusive meet and greet reception at AFA with the conference speakers on the evening of July 17th. Register now for Roots to Fruit. Grounded in truth, growing in grace. Visit afa.net/summit. afa.net/summit.
What if healthcare could be more than bills and bureaucracy? What if it could reflect faith, foster community, and offer spiritual support? At Redeem HealthShare Ministry, the mission goes beyond medical bills. It's about honoring Christ and embracing healthcare that aligns with Christian values. Redeem members share medical expenses through monthly contributions, supporting one another in a Christ-centered community. It's not insurance, it's believers helping believers through financial support and prayer. And Redeem HealthShare provides freedom for members to select the doctors, hospitals, and treatments that are right for them. No networks, no restrictions, just faith-driven care. From everyday checkups to unexpected medical emergencies, Redeem offers flexible programs and encouragement rooted in Scripture. Because your healthcare should reflect your faith, not compromise it. More at redeemhealthshare.org.
At the Core podcasts are available at afr.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the program here on American Family Radio. I'm Walker Wildmon. As a reminder, our Activate Summit is coming up this summer, July 16th through the 18th, and we would love for you to join us here at our national headquarters in Tupelo, Mississippi for that summit. Activate Summit 2026. You can go over to afa.net/summit, afa.net/summit to register for that. And registration closes on May 22nd. So just about 2 weeks out on May 22nd, registration will close. Some of the speakers, Brother Bert Harper, Jeff Shreve, Dr. Jessica Peck, and Katie Faust, amongst others, that will be at our Activate Summit. Well, moving to our next guest on the program, this segment is Texas State Senator Mays Middleton. He represents District 11 there in the state of Texas, and he's on to talk about some of the legislation he's been working on this session and previous sessions as well. Senator Middleton, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me on here today.
Yeah, glad to have you on. We like to highlight various lawmakers, whether at the state or federal level, that are working on things that we share values in. And you're doing that in the state of Texas. Before we jump into some of these bills you've been working on and getting passed into law and signed by the governor, tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been in the state Senate there.
So look, for me, this is a calling. This is not a job. You know, like our president, I give away the salary, the pension, the health care, the state license plate. I don't take the lobbyist NFL tickets or lobbyist ski trips. I am only here to serve and fight for the conservative values that we believe in. Can't be bought or rented. and the Austin swamp cannot get to me. And look, we've got to be bold in our faith here because we are a Christian nation. We are a Christian state. The Texas Constitution begins with this in the preamble, humbly invoking the blessings of Almighty God, right? That's a prayer, begins with a prayer. And so what matters the most in this? Of course, we want to elect Christian conservatives to office, right? We've got to elect good Christians to all levels of government. But not only that, we've got to defeat the left. So it matters more than anything because it is this battle of good versus evil. We are the light up against the dark. We saw what they did to Charlie Kirk. They've tried to kill President Trump multiple times. And this is also a show me, don't tell me business, right? You got to show the results. I was in the House for 4 years, chairman of the Freedom Caucus, now in the Senate, always in the top 1 or 2 most conservative members. But I can show you those conservative results. I took on the woke left's radical gender ideology and won. I authored and passed the Save Women's Sports Law and the strongest women's privacy law in America, which kicks perverted men out of women's restrooms and locker rooms and showers. This is common sense stuff, right? I took on the atheists and defeated them and got prayer and the 10 Commandments back into our classrooms, and also took on our foreign adversaries in Austin and stopped China from buying our land. Also, these radical Muslim groups like CARE and Muslim Brotherhood, stopped them from buying any property in Texas. Now taking on one of our biggest threats, one of our most growing threats, which is Sharia law and Islamification, because they don't think we deserve the right to exist, not just as Americans, but as Christians. And it is a tough fight.
Let me ask you this, Senator Middleton, about the only illegal immigration front, which is obviously a very important topic. President Trump's been working on this going back to his first term. Talk about some of the bills you've worked on, and a couple of them have become state law in Texas, specifically SB 4, goes back to 2023, that special session there. But talk about those bills, because some of those things are enabling the state government to take action against illegal immigrants, which traditionally has been deferred and delegated off to the federal government. But what you've done in the legislature is enabled the state of Texas to take action against people who are crossing our southern border illegally.
Right. And, obviously I'm running for attorney general, and this is really simple here. If you treat our laws and our Constitution as a suggestion, which the left always does, then you have violated your oath of office and you need to be removed from office. And border security is national security. We saw in those 4 years Biden was there. He prioritized illegal immigrants above those of the rights of citizens, right? We were under an invasion. It's very clear. So what did I do? I fought to change the law to allow the state of Texas to charge illegal immigrants with illegal entry and then return them to country of origin. It was matching essentially what the federal government was supposed to be doing while Biden was there. That's a 10th Amendment issue. That's a states' rights issue, but it's got to be enforced. We won that before the Fifth Circuit the other day. Of course, the left challenged it. But not only that, you're seeing what's happening in Minnesota, right? In Minneapolis, where they're blocking ICE. They're blocking President Trump's ability to deport illegal immigrants. We have a very powerful tool in Texas. It was a Freedom Caucus priority. It's called the ban on sanctuary cities. So what will we do? What would I do as AG if they get in the way? Local government, liberal local government gets in the way of President Trump and his border security and deportation agenda. There are 3 tools. Number 1, sue for civil penalties. Number 2, criminal penalties. And number 3, this is the strongest tool, removal from office. You get in the way of ICE, you get removed from office. It is that simple, because this is how we keep our families safe. This is how we keep Texas safe. It's how we keep our communities safe.
The other piece of legislation I wanted you to touch base on, I know we're going bouncing over a little bit on a couple of different bills here. Some of these are different legislation that have been passed, but nonetheless, one of the more recent ones was this annual report on the fiscal cost of illegal immigration. The reason this is important is because a lot of states have a hard time tracking and knowing the exact cost on the system and the cost on taxpayers that illegal immigration is causing. So talk about the importance of that bill and getting that transparency out there so taxpayers can see what illegal immigration is costing the state.
Well, exactly, right? Governor Abbott was already collecting data on this with our healthcare system. We know it's in the billions of dollars. One of the other things that we've got to do is Plyler versus Doe, right? That was the Supreme Court case that requires taxpayers to subsidize, these public services for illegal immigrants. It's wrong. It's one of my top priorities to challenge that and overturn that. I'm tired of Texas taxpayers having to shoulder the burden of the consequences of an open border, whether that's in the education system or the healthcare system or anything else. And that is why I fought to stop in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. Right? That was something that occurred in Texas. It was an old law. It was wrong. And what it did is it required our taxpayers to pay for subsidized tuition, so lower cost higher ed tuition for illegal immigrants. And it discriminated against citizens, right? Someone comes here from Louisiana, they pay out-of-state tuition. Someone breaks the law and crosses the border, they pay in-state tuition. That is wrong. We got to turn off the magnets as well. And, that includes birthright citizenship. That's been abused. That's another magnet, why people are coming here. And it's not just, illegal immigration from our southern border, right? We saw something in the news the other day where communist Chinese citizens are recruiting Texas women to be surrogates, having babies, getting dual citizenship, sending the children back to China. Is that in our favor? I don't think so. When are they going to show back up, right? So that's another reason why we need to ban birthright citizenship and end it once and for all. And I hope that happens exactly like that in our U.S. Supreme Court. Very important case to put America first and put Texas first.
We've been talking to Texas State Senator Mays Middleton, serving District 11, also running for the Attorney General's position there in the state of Texas. Senator Middleton, tell our folks where they can read more about your work and check out more about the things that you're working on.
So go to maysmiddleton.com, MaysMiddleton.com, and I'm of course on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as well. But look, my wife and I were blessed to have 4 little ones at home. That's my daily reminder of what we're fighting for here. And the reason why it's so important is we don't have another Texas to move to. And I'll tell you, I'm the only one in this AG's race that's been protested at the Texas Capitol during this campaign. They had these big, ugly green signs with my face on it, and they called me the bathroom bigot. Why? Because I don't want men in my little girl's restroom or locker room or shower. That shows you the evil we're up against here. Or even James Tallarico, who's running for U.S. Senate, and he said it's unchristian and un-American to display the 10 Commandments in classrooms. Right, so what do? You got to bring the fight to the left. So I donated 10 Commandments posters to all the schools in James Tallarico's district in his honor. He didn't like that very much, but that's what we got to do to take this country back.
Amen. Hey, thanks so much, Senator Middleton. Glad to have you on.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on today.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate that. That's Senator Middleton there from the state of Texas, serving District 11 and also running for the AG's office there in the most recent statewide election. Also, we're going to attempt to have on Chip Roy, Congressman Chip Roy, who's also running for that position there in the state of Texas for Attorney General. Moving on to a few other topics I want to get to this segment before we wrap it up is what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. This is a pretty lengthy, about 2.5 minute Fox report on this Project Freedom that the White House and President Trump announced over the weekend to attempt to open the Strait of Hormuz. So let's listen to this report. This is going to be clip 3.
Central Command says U.S. forces in the waters off of Iran have now been working to restore safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. They are implementing the humanitarian project, which President Trump now called Project Freedom. He announced it yesterday. CENTCOM posted this today. As a first step, 2 U.S.-flagged merchant vessels have successfully transited through the Strait of Hormuz and are safely headed on their journey. Iran state-run media this morning claimed the Revolutionary Guard hit a U.S. warship with 2 missiles. CENTCOM said, no, that did not happen. Iran then said it had fired warning shots. Meanwhile, back to the truth, the defense ministry of the UAE says Iran did shoot down, or it had to shoot down 3 missiles offshore as a 4th splashed into the water. We understand those may have come from Iran. Brian Yenis is live for us in Tel Aviv, Israel, with the latest. So, Brian, some breaking news last hour. A lot going on where you are today.
No doubt about it, Harris. And so for the first time since this U.S.-Iran ceasefire was brokered 4 weeks ago, Iran is actually initiating attacks right now. We know that the United Arab Emirates missile defense system is activated. 4 missiles were fired from Iran to the UAE. 3 were shot out of the air, intercepted over the sea. The 4th fell into the water. We also know that Iran has launched drones against the United Arab Emirates, one hitting an oil facility in Fujairah, sparking a fire there. 2 other Iranian drones hit an empty oil tanker as it made its way through the Strait of Hormuz. And at this hour, right now, actually, CENTCOM Navy Admiral Brad Cooper is updating reporters on Project Freedom, the humanitarian effort right now to safely guide an estimated 800 cargo ships and tankers and 20,000 crew members out of the strait. Admiral Cooper says that CENTCOM has defeated multiple Iranian ballistic missile launches, drones, and has sunk 6 Iranian small boats this morning. CENTCOM is strongly advising Iranian forces to stay away as it guides ships through what the U.S. is calling an enhanced security area along Oman's territorial waters. So far, at least 2 U.S.-flagged merchant ships have successfully crossed through the strait. Iranian state media, by the way, is now claiming that Iran fired warning shots at U.S. destroyers in the strait. It says that the Strait of Hormuz is its territory and is warning that any American interference will be considered a violation of the sea.
Giving you the background to hear on this Project Freedom that President Trump announced over this past weekend. Here's where we are. Just to keep things simple and let you know where we are. The kinetic warfare, the bombing of Iran has ceased, and it has been for a couple weeks now since the ceasefire was announced several weeks ago. The Strait of Hormuz is still locked as it's ever been, closed as it's ever been, despite what Iran says, despite what the President Trump says. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. We're at, instead of 130 to 150 ships passing through the strait on a daily basis, you're at single digits. Most of those approved by Iran because of their relationship with the host country or the flag country. What President Trump announced over the weekend was this Project Freedom, where the U.S. military would escort these commercial shipping vessels, these commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz to unclog the jam, so to speak. Well, the U.S. military did that on, I think it was either Sunday or Monday. They did that within hours of President Trump announcing this, and 2 U.S. flag container ships successfully transited the Strait of Hormuz. But then on Tuesday of this week, yesterday, President Trump put out this statement. Based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran, additionally, the fact that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not an agreement can be finalized and signed. So, I know it's hard to keep up here. Over the weekend, President Trump says, Project Freedom, we're about to unclog the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to open it up. Ships are going to be flowing. And then 48 hours later, President Trump says, we're putting the whole thing on pause. We're pausing the whole thing. We're not doing Project Freedom right now. No ships are going to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So, I don't know what's going on. I would love to be optimistic and think there's some grand strategy here. But being multiple months into this, and this daily back and forth on what we're doing and what we're not doing, and we're going to do this and we're not going to do that, I actually don't know what to believe. And I actually don't know how this is going to end. I don't have a crystal ball. We'll be back in a few.
Tune in Saturdays at 1:30 Central for The Compass with host Rick Beggs and iVoter Guide President Debbie Withnow. Each weekend, The Compass will seek to navigate the public square with faith, truth, and conviction. Rick and Debbie will keep tabs on upcoming elections and remind us of the importance of our participation in them. The Compass reminds us that God is our true north. Be listening for The Compass, Saturday afternoons at 1:30 Central on American Family Radio.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. AFA aims to evangelize the lost and disciple the believer. We aim to strengthen biblical marriages and equip parents to raise godly children.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
This Sunday's Mother's Day. How will you honor your mom? My mom went to heaven years ago, but I'll honor her memory by sharing stories with my grandchildren about how my mom raised me to fear God, love truth, and live by faith. Hello, I'm Sam Rohr with the American Pastors Network and another Stand in the Gap Minute. The word mother first occurs in Genesis 2:24, where God created male and female, named them Adam and Eve, and then ordained marriage between father and mother. For a man shall leave his father and mother and then cleave unto his wife. God's plan starts with one man and one woman who, forsaking all others, cleave to each other and form a God-designed team from which God can give children to be raised up in the fear of God. Motherhood's not just a biological, but a spiritual position ordained of God. Join us at Stand in the Gap Radio and TV and honor our moms as God does. If you're enjoying these Stand in the Gap minutes, let us know at AmericanPastorsNetwork.net.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Walker Wildmon.
Welcome back to the program here on American Family Radio. The last segment I ended up with the Fox report on what's going on in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. And that, for those who don't know and haven't necessarily kept up with this in detail, other than the headlines, the Strait of Hormuz is an important global shipping lane, and it's more important for other countries in Asia and Europe than it is for the United States. That's true, but still, it's generally a very important international shipping lane, and there are thousands, or at least 1,000 plus vessels that are at a standstill in the Persian Gulf, unable to transit out of that Gulf into international waters and through the Strait of Hormuz. And there are thousands of personnel, up to 20,000, on those vessels that have been eating, sleeping, and living on the vessels for 2 months now. So that's what's going on. That's the importance of getting that Strait of Hormuz reopened. And right now it's not, and there's no sign of it being reopened. And in fact, this is looking like Iran actually does have some pretty serious leverage here. The fact that they've been able to keep it closed through military force and through threat for this long actually shows that for all intents and purposes, Iran actually does have a lot of control over that Strait of Hormuz, more than we're giving them credit for. Nonetheless, let's jump to our next guest. Representative Brice Wiggins is with us. He represents District 52 here in the state of Mississippi, and he's on to talk about some of the legislation he has worked on this past session and soon to be special session in Mississippi. Representative Wiggins, glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me. It's Senator Wiggins, but I work closely with our friends in the House over there.
Yeah,
so it's great to be here.
Sorry about that. I do have you as Senator Wiggins, but I'm juggling a couple things here.
I believe I understand.
Yeah, well, glad to have you on, Senator Wiggins. You represent District 52. For those who are from Mississippi, familiar with this area, tell us a couple of the counties that you're representing there in District 52.
Yeah, so I call it representing South Jackson County, which that is all of Jackson County, but is the cities of Pascagoula, Goshen, Ocean Springs, and parts of the county. But it's where Ingalls Shipbuilding, which makes 70% of the U.S. Navy, has its big shipbuilding facility. Got Chevron here, and it's actually, for those that find it intriguing, it's where former U.S. Majority Trent Lott is from. So good legacy here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Senator Wiggins, tell us about this Keeping Kids Safe Online. This has been signed by the governor. It's a very important bill that you worked on with Representative Hood over in the House. Tell us a little bit about this bill and some backgrounder.
Yeah, so just for your listeners, my background, I was a prosecutor for almost a decade, where I prosecuted cases that involved child abuse, crimes against children, things like that. So trading on that, I kind of have taken that over into the legislature. And yes, this bill, it started out one way, and it ended up another way. But the bottom line is that it has provided a pathway for parents in particular to hold social media companies accountable for their products and their social media apps. And I probably don't need to tell your listeners kind of the things that we've been having to deal with in our society with the, I guess, dangers of social media. And so, people that I've heard from, parents, they're looking for something. Now, I am chairman of the Judiciary A Committee in the Senate. My colleague, Chairman Joey Hood, is in the House. And the bill started out one way, and what happens is you get involved in First Amendment issues and things like that. But working together, we wanted to find a way that we could allow the bill to go and work to have the parents have a say in protecting their children. And I'll get into kind of the specifics if you want me to, but that's how the gist of it came about.
Yeah, well, the civil route is a relatively new development when we're talking about these online platforms and the harm that is being done to children. And the reason I mention that is because these major technology platforms and companies have been relatively shielded through Section 230 and other statutes as well that give them, this liability protections where they claim, we don't control this. This is just a platform. But it's so much more than that. And they do actually exercise way more control than they claim to have. They've got entire moderation teams, entire moderation algorithms. These platforms fully know what's going on their platforms. To act as if they don't is just to be completely lying. And so with all of that being said, and the technology there today to be able to properly moderate the platforms and protect children, and the fact that other companies that are not technology companies have to fall under various regulations and liability because you can't provide a good or a service that is harming someone and then just act like, oh, I can't be held accountable. So basically what we're doing here is making technology companies follow the same rules and liability procedures as everybody else does in the business world. And so, but this is refreshing that we're opening the door for big tech to be held accountable, because for so long, last 15 to 20 years, they just haven't been from a civil standpoint.
Yeah, you summed it up well. And just to kind of get into the logistics of the bill, it has done two things, and it'll go into effect July 1st. And that is, number one, it requires the schools in our state and with the Department of Education to put out information informing parents and children about the harms of technology, of social media platforms, and the things that go along with that, and also the good and the bad, but specifically that. And then the other thing it does is, to your big point, is it allows for a cause of action to be filed by the Attorney General in the state of Mississippi, where the social media platforms are seen to, where they intentionally know that they could do harm to the children and to others that get addicted. Okay. And then number three, it does allow for what we call an individual cause of action by anybody, by parents, if the platforms are knowingly sharing pornography. And to your point, this is actually borrowing from what we call our normal products liability laws. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. I mean, the reality is you can't put a product out into the marketplace and know that it's going to cause danger or injuries to people. If you do, then you have a right to sue them, be it through the government or through yourself. You have a right to sue them. And yes, that does hold them accountable, because on a certain level, if it continues, in some ways it may put them out of business. But to your point, there's been some shielding. Yes, there's been a lot of shielding. They haven't had to live up to that. And because of the stuff that hasn't happened in Congress on that, the states are picking up the mantle and trying to stand up for parents and families. And we did that in the state of Mississippi a couple years ago with the Walker-Montgomery Act, which was where a child, a teenager, committed suicide, got addicted to the social media platforms. We passed an act on that. I see this act as the next step, where parents can again file lawsuits against the social media company. And here's how that's important. Look, these things get to be brought out in court. Okay, as you probably know, during this spring there were two verdicts, one in California and I think one in New Mexico, against this Meta and the other social media platforms. And a few of those actually settled. Well, these companies don't want that to come out in public, if you will, because trials are public, or they want an accountability. And the one in California, the jury returned a verdict against them. So this provides that accountability on a state-by-state basis. Now, I fully support companies and corporations, and I am a free market guy, but there's a give and take here, and the field needed to be leveled a little bit.
Yeah.
Or a lot, actually.
Absolutely. The comparison that Jamison Taylor and others use, and I'm sure you've used this before, is with the tobacco industry. And now, with all the litigation, the big tobacco litigation, now you go into a convenience store, and I mean, in big, bold letters by the tobacco booth, it basically tells you how this can kill you. in legalese, that's what it says, and cancer, etc. And so, but then you still have the law that only adults can purchase the tobacco, assuming they know the risk involved with the disclaimers. But here we're talking about similar harm while it takes shape in a whole different form. But there's a lot of studies, a lot of sociology and psychology behind how these platforms are built, how the algorithms really prey on your endorphins and everything that gets released. But we're talking about minors here. So this isn't like we're trying to prevent a 27-year-old adult from being able to use social media, even though I still think there should be disclaimers. But we're talking about minors here. We're talking about children that are being victimized by the platforms and by the bad actors on the platforms. And so that just gives people a little bit of a comparison as far as what's going on here.
And to your comparison point in the tobacco stuff. And by the way, I kind of my law career got started when the whole tobacco stuff was at its peak. I just come out of law school, but part of that was that the tobacco companies marketed to the youth. They actually, if you go look at what they did I remember the Camel package that was Camel cigarettes and Joe Cool and all that. That was, from stuff I saw, that was geared towards youth and children for in my opinion, for the psychological reasons to get people, and you build that to make them long-term customers and stuff. So it's the same sort of thing on that. And also, both from a legal perspective and a legislative perspective, there has always been a difference drawn between minors and adults. And generally speaking, that's 18. And that's what this does, is protecting the kids from such things as they're minors. And to your point, the reality is, if you're an adult, you can make your own decisions and all that. And guess what? Being a part of America and a private society, you can, as an adult, you get to make decisions that actually are against you. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about children here, and that's been the line that has been in place, and that's what was drawn, that was the line that was drawn, kind of borrowing from that in the past.
Yeah, and it's a very consensus building line. I mean, when you poll the public, who's against protecting children? I mean, you're talking about a small fraction of people, and most of those are probably criminals anyway. But most people are in favor of protecting children. And that's what this legislation does. And it sends a signal even to adults that, hey, you need to be careful on these platforms. There's some harms that can be done on these platforms. Senator Brice Wiggins, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate your work. And tell our folks where they can find out more about you.
Yeah, so appreciate it. If they want to find me on, speaking of, I am on the social apps, Facebook and X, and Instagram. So I am there. And then I have bricewiggins.com. You can find me there. Or you can just Google Brice Wiggins, Mississippi State Senator, and things should pop up on that. And look, it's a privilege to be with y'all. I appreciate the mission that you're working on and that you've been doing. And, standing up for parents and children has really been the focus of both my prosecutorial career and my legislative career. So appreciate y'all allowing me to come on.
Absolutely. Appreciate your work. Appreciate your partnership.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Senator Brice Wiggins from the state of Mississippi, representing District 52 there. And glad to have him on. He's been very key in a lot of legislation over the years, and specifically this past session, very, very critical to getting some of these good pieces of legislation through the finish line. So we appreciate him coming on. Thanks for joining us, folks. AFR.net. Find out more information about our programs. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.